Hi guys, and welcome to this video where I will explain to you everything that is known about the alien rocks, because if you didn't know, it is actually canon, and I also took the liberty to add more information of my own initiative. So without further ado, let's dive in! Rox is one of the many aliens that the band has in its Omniarchs, and is known for being our yellow limestone guy. He is a basalt from the planet Andesite, and he is incredibly strong and durable, able to survive intense heat, and is also able to create earthquakes. But he is a bit cumbersome, and is not able to fight very well in water. Despite this cool repertoire, he never had a chance to appear on screen, nor even in comics. But he appeared in two plays, Power of the Omnitrix and Rise of Villion, along with his buddy Squidstrictor, another alien that suffered the same fate. Although many crew members of the Ben 10 show thought that they were in canon, Derek J. Wyatt, the showrunner of the show, believed that Rox and Squidstrictor were canon and were unlocked before Omniverse, and if the network allowed to include more aliens, they would have appeared. And these are all the canon facts about Rox, which are very few, and I don't know if in the future we'll know more about him. I personally hope to see him appear in the new Ben 10 comics that Dynamite is working on, but with all being said, let's switch to my reinterpretation about this very cool looking alien. To be honest with you guys, I didn't even know that rocks existed in the first place. In fact, when I was about to start the second part of Ben 10 vs Goku, I originally planned to put 10 new aliens that Ben would have used, and one of them was in fact a rock alien that I originally called Rockhead, that looked like it was made out of cement. But when I then discovered that he actually exists, thanks to one of the videos of Think Tank, I then decided to change him almost completely. And I also moved the release of some of the new aliens because I still need time to figure out how to make them look like, and there are also other aliens that I would like to make them fight Goku. But don't worry, the Saiyan transformation, it will happen in part 2. That's a promise. By looking at all the description about Rox, it feels like he is a very powerful one, since he is able to create earthquakes. But in my opinion, it's kind of a shame that it feels like that is his only ability. So I decided to give him more powers that in my opinion don't ruin him, but instead they make him look like more cool. For example, manipulating rocks, creating a giant version of himself with rocks, regenerating himself with other rocks, and so on. All of his powers are linked to one factor if you haven't yet noticed. In order to make his power works, he needs to be surrounded by rocks. For example, if an enemy destroys his arm, and if there are rocks nearby, he can regenerate it even with another type of rock. Or he can regenerate it in another way. If a basalt, remember a specific type of rock, and if that rock is in his range of action, which is pretty big by the way, he can call it like if it was the mighty hammer Mjolnir. Of course, with this incredible power to manipulate rocks, creating a giant version of himself seems pretty powerful, but the giant form has an advantage and a disadvantage. On one side, the form, it has no limit, no ring power, no ring height. This form can even get as big as a Tokustar, and they can even beat them. the more rocks the basalt absorbs, the more bigger and powerful he will be. A basalt, if you want, can even absorb the entire surface of a planet, achieving a form that is vastly more powerful than a hot star, and a way lot bigger too, even if by doing so the planet itself will die. But as I said before, there is also a disadvantage in this form, that being the fact that is also incredibly slow. It's true that the more rocks he absorbs, the more powerful he gets. But due to the huge amount of rocks he absorbs, it takes a lot of time in order to throw a normal punch in giant form that could blow up a solar system. So it's very powerful, but it's kind of difficult finding the right moment to use this form, because the enemy can simply take his time and blow the giant basalt easily. But even if the form gets destroyed, the basalt has still a way to survive, because, as I said before, as long as a basalt is near rocks, no matter how tiny or microscopic the piece might be, he will live by regenerating himself in the tiny rock. That's right, a basalt can also regenerate itself by being near a very microscopic stone. That way, it will be impossible for the enemy to spot them, and they will also have enough time to go in a bigger pile of rocks to restore themselves in their original form. They can also regenerate with other objects as long as those objects are rock-based, and depending by the material that they are absorbing, they can gain different attributes, like more durability, more agility, and so on. For example, if a basalt uses a petrosapien rock, they can also shoot diamonds and have all the other abilities of a petrosapien. But like I said, it needs to be a rock-based material, so if they have to fight in the Arctic, the ice is not going to help them. With all being said about rocks, I personally feel that maybe he's way too broken, but I feel like given the slow weakness and the fact that he can't fight very well in water, I feel like he's not that much broken. But I then realized that I also forgot the most important thing, talking about his home planet. So sit tight for the history and customs of the basalt. Long time ago, in the Obsidian Nebula, there was a planet that was illuminated by 3 suns, making it impossible for every type of life form to be born there. But one day, one of the many volcanoes of the planet made an eruption so loud that the planet nearby could hear it, and the entire surface of Andesite was fully covered in lava. After some days, from the lava that was petrified, the first basalt were born, and from the moment forward, their civilization progressed to a point where nowadays they are the #1 in producing weapons of mass destruction. Thanks to the volcanoes that they use as cauldrons, they put inside every type of material that they find to then fuse them together and forge some of the best and unique weapons that they then sold at the price of 1,000 Canon. Volcanoes are very important in basalt culture. For example, in the agriculture system, they stimulate selected volcanoes in order for them to erupt lava and irrigate their rock farm. And they also use the lava to make one of their most famous drinks, the lavyok. The lavyok is a drink that the basalt use to get drunk, and they also use it with other friends that like to get drunk with this very hot drink. But it's a drink that is made out of lava, so it's really not made for everyone. Another important aspect in their culture is when we look at the relationships. Basalt can pretty much mate with both genders of their kind, simply because when they want to have a baby, they both remove one piece of their rock body to form the infant. However, if the basalt have on his body another rock material, which is only allowed in case of a life or death scenario, he will be asked to quickly replace it with some stone of their own planet, since they think that having a different stone means that you don't share their same ideology, that being that they constantly need to wear the yellow limestone to respect the volcano premium rock that created them, which is also dormant right now. This rule was so strict that a basalt paid the price heavily. His name was removed in all history books, and still to this day he is only known as the basalt scientist. He was removed by history books for a high crime that he committed against the basalts. One day, this scientist decided that the ability of premium rock should have been tested, trying to follow the same steps of Asmuth, which he admired when he created the megamorphs, to create his own life forms. So, without no one noticing it, he stole some of the volcano magical lava and secretly flied to the planet known as Fulmas, which it was deserted. Here, he tested the lava, and by accident, he created the Fulmini species. He believed that he was the first one to have actually created life in all basalt history. But he noticed that the Fulmini, since their first moment that they were born, they had a huge need of absorbing energy. But he didn't care about that at first. So he brought some of the Fulmini on Andesite to show to the king his great success. But the ruler, Gneiss IV, didn't like the fact that this scientist secretly stole the sacred magical lava, and mostly he didn't like the Fulmini, simply because they weren't yellow limestone then. The scientist tried to tell him that the Fulmini would have been a great asset for the king, but the ruler didn't want to hear it anymore of this nonsense. So he arrested the scientist and condemned him with his Fulmini to be thrown in a volcano, where they will be left there as the lava will slowly melt their bodies. But the scientist didn't want to die, or even wanted to see his project, the Fulmini, being destroyed. So, knowing that the Fulmini were still hungry for energy, he let them free, and they brought chaos quickly, destroying every defense that the royal basalt guards had by absorbing energy beams, absorbing the energy from laser cannons. They literally brought chaos. And with this chaos, the scientist and the Fulmini quickly escaped, flying back on Fulmas. The scientist cared a lot about the Fulmini, and he didn't want to see them disappear. But the basalts were already coming to destroy Fulmas and the Fulmini species. So, as a last attempt, the scientist ordered to the Fulmini to keep the basalts distracted while he would face the king. And so, the scientist absorbed some of Fulmas rocks to gain the same abilities of the Fulmini, and went full on giant mode to fight against the giant king Gneiss IV. Their fight was intense, and the scientist tried his best to defend Fulmas against the anger of Gneiss IV, but he wasn't skilled enough, and the king defeated the scientist. King Niceford also ordered to the Basalt to fire a giant laser beam at the core of Fulmas from their mothership. The scientist, despite being a lot higher and destroyed, he tried to block the beam, but it didn't work, and he got pushed by the beam into the planet's core, where there was still some energy left, and the planet got destroyed. The Basalts, thinking their work was done there, they flew away, happy and convinced that the abomination known as Fulmini were gone. But in reality, there were some Fulmini survivors that found the scientist's body that was barely alive. So they took him on one of their ships where they worked on healing him. But they didn't fully know how to heal the scientist. And so, by accident, they revived him, but the old scientist's personality was gone, and a new one emerged, one that wanted to destroy everything, one that wanted vengeance against the Basalts. And from this moment, the scientist became the High Override that created a new planet for the Fulmini, Fulmas 2, took full control of the Fulmini and went on a conquering spree, trying to conquer planets like Petropia, Oros, and so on. He even tried to conquer Andesite multiple times, but the Basalt were always able to send them back. However, still to this day, the Fulmini are like forgotten, like they never existed in the first place. The only thing that is known about them is that the High Override and his Fulmini army left Fulmas 2 and went to conquer a planet near the end of the universe. And from that day, no one ever heard of them again. And that's all. I hope you liked my reinterpretation of rocks and the basalts, and if you are interested, I can do the same for the other aliens. All that you need to do is leave a comment about the alien that you are interested, and while you are at it, you can also share the video with the others, like and subscribe. And I will see you all in the next video.